Bustin' out 'em.
It is the Dimer Sports Betting Podcast, episode 2 of Conference Championship Week. Dave, are you getting more and more excited for another round of the NFL playoffs?
I am. The tension is palpable, as they say. Going through today's notes, I kept coming up with more and more angles, so I'm going to have to try and temper down my my plays today and keep myself focused, because I feel like we could go really deep into these games. We've got plenty of angles to look at. Should be fun. But at some point, I did have to stop myself from going too crazy.
I think the people want deep, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to dive as deep as we can into both of our conference championships, Broncos, Pats, Seahawks, Rams. We'll give you our official plays, model recommended, of course, for each of those. I do have a college hoops best bet that we'll get to later in the show for Thursday night as well. But first, let's start with some coaching carousel talk.
Yeah, some pretty interesting moves since the last time we talked about it. I mean, we pretty much ranked the jobs, or more or less talked about the most enticing and the least enticing. Unsurprising, the ones we thought were probably the most enticing have been claimed, the Giants and the Falcons. Well, I mean, now we got the Bills out there and the Ravens, which I'll get to in a little bit. But at that time, those were probably the most appealing gigs up there. But since then, Bills parted ways with Sean McDermott, then kind of burnt the bridge on his way out the door, blaming the coaching staff for the Keon Coleman pick. That was maybe a little unexpected. I thought the parting was less surprising, but figured it would be a little more amicable. He's gotten them so far so many times. It feels like at some point you have to change something, and it is kind of rare territory he's in. 4 teams have won a playoff game 6 years in a row. They're the only one of them to have not won a Super Bowl. So you could see the tension building over there. But I thought it would be a little more friendly of a split given the success that they have had together.
Yeah, it feels like some of these franchises that are that close to the pinnacle of this are the ones that end up the most resentful when they don't get there. And that's sort of how I'm viewing the Bills. I feel like they're an easy team to root for. Everybody loves Josh Allen. I had no ill will towards Sean McDermott through the years. Not surprised he's fired. Almost feel bad he is, because, gosh, if that call just flips the coin, we're talking about a completely different scenario right now. But yeah, I agree. This was in a little bit of poor taste for my liking. I'm now looking at the Bills a little sideways, like, this is the most successful stretch run we've seen in like 20 years from this franchise, and can't be at least a little appreciative of what Sean McDermott's contributions were. What about the Falcons with their hire here, Kevin Stefanski to Atlanta? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we said that was probably the second best job given the offensive personnel, pretty solid defense there. And he's really well-rounded. He knows how to coach a team. He's dealt with the Browns, won Coach of the Year there twice. Got to be one of the hardest things to do. Maybe they just brought him in because of experience doing so, managing complex quarterback situations, which he will have here with Kirk Cousins' contract. Michael Penix Jr. coming back from injury. He does go back to Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, so it could be a little interesting to see how that plays out as far as relationships go. Can't help but wonder if he would have liked to wait a few days, get the chance to coach Josh Allen, or at least the opportunity to interview to coach Josh Allen. It's kind of funny. You think some of these guys who took a job maybe would have liked that, but he should be pretty good there with the offensive setup.
Yeah, both Stefanski and Harbaugh are the two that, to me, I'm like, man, would they have taken this job if they knew Buffalo was coming open? It's kind of crazy to me, but I think he'll be good in Atlanta. I think it'll be only a matter of time before we see Atlanta back in consideration, at least for the playoffs. The Titans made their hire, Robert Saleh. I don't know what it feels to have him back in a head coaching role in the NFL. I feel like he's one of those character coaches. Like, I like my head coaches to be characters, good or bad, but I don't know how well I think this is going to work in Tennessee.
Yeah, he kind of has that Dan Campbell bite your kneecaps off, like fun caricature energy about him. But I mean, he'll get a lot of help this time, at least, from whoever he brings over in his staff, and he won't have to deal with the Aaron Rodgers drama like he did in New York or the New York media. So it's definitely a little bit of a softer landing spot for him. Doesn't feel like the most appealing job out there. I'm just kind of wondering if maybe he felt like, because the Niners defense had a few issues this year, even if they were injury related, that he didn't want to maybe miss out on the next cycle. So take it while you can.
Yeah,
We'll be interested to see how he develops Cam Ward, though.
that read, I think, is the right one. He's like, if I don't jump now, am I going to be able to jump later? But I think of all the new hires, this is the one whose fit I'm most confused about. I don't think a Robert Saleh offense in Tennessee with these pieces is going to go over all that well. And then Jeff Hafley with Miami. I don't think anyone's going to be able to convince me that Jeff Hafley is a better coach than the coach they just fired in Miami, but I guess we needed a new voice in that locker room. Your thoughts?
You're trading an offensive outlook for a defensive one for the most part. Obviously, he did really good with that in Green Bay. Dolphins badly need that as well. Just kind of a little more in flux here with like personnel issues. What's the deal with Tyreek Hill? Darren Waller, who randomly played a large part of that offense down the stretch as a free agent. Tua, obviously his contract is crazy and they need to figure out if he's the long-term answer and figure out what to do if he's not. So kind of a lot of moving pieces there. One that moves the needle, I think, less than the others for me. However, he is the first or the only first-time head coach from this cycle so far. So definitely be a hot one to watch. And, don't think he'll be in the coach of the year talks next year. I think the Dolphins will take a couple years to turn that around, but they need anything pretty much after how things have kind of soured over there.
He's the one I know the least about, so I'm not going to pass too much judgment until we see what he looks like as a head coach. But it does just crack me up how these NFL franchises operate, where if something doesn't go wrong or it loses its sex appeal after a couple of years, you just look for the most opposite thing you can possibly find. It's like we have a roster full of offensive pieces that are all explosive big play guys. We need to figure out how to optimize them. No, let's hire the defensive guy that clearly all of our locker room cancers are going to be upset about when they get paired with him. So I guess a rebuild is coming from Miami. Two jobs still up for grabs, the Bills and the Ravens. It's interesting to step back. I think we spent so much of this season on this show even looking at the Bills and the Ravens as potential Super Bowl favorites, even as model favorites along the way, largely because of the players on these teams. And, it's a little bit crazy, the franchises that are still competing for a Super Bowl, while these two are now the vacant jobs looking for a head coach. So if you were a head coach, Dave, I want to ask you this. Which job would you rather have, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson's team right
now? I'd take the Bills. I'd take Josh Allen's team. I think you can't really go wrong with the quarterbacks. I do think Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the game right now. But I think you're just getting a little bit more there. The run game, you have Derrick Henry in Baltimore, but he's getting a little older. Wasn't quite as efficient this year. The offensive receiving cores aren't really that different from one another. The Ravens have Isaiah Likely, who's shown some flashes, Zay Flowers, who has some issues, but, is very good. So I don't know. It's kind of a coin flip. I think I'd lean Buffalo. But then you got to live in Buffalo. So
it's a fair point. I do like Baltimore. I visited twice, Dave. It's going to break my brain. Like, it'll be fascinating to watch both these teams next season. And if they get back where they were supposed to be this season with just some new leadership in the room. But we'll see who those candidates end up being that fill those jobs. Okay, let's turn next forward to our conference championship games. How about some storylines at a broad level that we're keeping an eye on first?
Yeah, there's kind of a lot to go through. So I just tried to narrow it down without getting into stuff that we're going to talk about in our wider previews anyway. But obviously the biggest one has to be Jarrett Stidham starting instead of Bo Nix. We all know this. It's not news, not breaking. We'll dive into it further in the larger game preview, but it's definitely the biggest storyline of the weekend. Look ahead line to Broncos-Patriots had the Broncos as minus 1.5 point favorites before that game and the subsequent injury. So a full 7-point swing up to where we saw it by way of Stidham getting the start. The original line of 5.5 would make the Broncos the biggest home underdog as a top seed in conference championship game in the Super Bowl era, or at least since 1970 rather. So it's really notable. I don't know if it should be that much. When you think about the line on its own. We were kind of like Broncos plus 5.5. Maybe it feels like it should be wider, but when you think in the context of what it would have been had Bo Nix been starting, a full touchdown does feel like a lot with the quality of the defense there. So certainly going to be one to watch. As far as the line moving more, we'll get to how much it has already in a bit. Currently projecting Stidham for 207 passing yards. And we talked about the value on him rather to throw one touchdown on the last show compared to what the odds were on the books. And I actually saw today's minus 210 to throw one touchdown. We saw minus 196 the other day. So that with the line movement starting to have me think this might be a little bit closer, and I maybe need to be more prepared just mentally, not even from a gambling perspective, but just to talk about it after the game, that we might be looking at Jarrett Stidham sitting on the right side of a victory here, or at least a very close game.
Yeah, you've got to at least prepare yourself for it. And it sounds crazy. I can't really imagine it, but we alluded to it on the Tuesday episode of this just a little bit when I floated the idea of maybe you take a Broncos flyer before this game. If it's a blowout, I'd be shocked. If it's a blowout in this stadium with that defense, with Drake May being the guy that needs to get you there, I just would be shocked. And maybe I'd be shocked if Stidham wins the game too. There's probably something in between the middle of those two things that this will land on. But our model showing 207 projected passing yards even got my attention. It's like, okay, this isn't a total goose egg. He's a competent guy. He was the number 1 rated quarterback in his class years ago. I'm looking twice at it too. How about in Rams? Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, Broncos down to plus 1,100 from 2 days ago, plus 1,300 for the Super Bowl. So
yeah,
there was value there. We talked about it, and I'm actually, let me check real quick to see if the model's probability has changed much. Still 11%. So
wow,
yeah. Getting closer and closer to fair odds there.
Wow. I did fire on it just a half a unit on Tuesday night when we recorded. So there we go. I'm happy with that. Okay, let's go to Rams and Seahawks next. I think this is going to be all over our in-depth game preview as well when we figure out how to bet this. But Kenneth Walker, is there a backup? Who's going to get those opportunities? We know Seattle loves to run multiple backs in a game. I think they'll still try to, but there might genuinely not be another running back active for this game.
Yeah, I mean, like somebody has to be, right? Like there has to physically be somebody who will be the RB2 in case of injury. But at this point, who knows? He's still the only active one on the roster. George Lonnie looks like he's moved up to RB2 on the depth chart, but he's still on IR, is back at practice. But Mike McDonald was pretty coy about, whether or not he'd even be available. And we're talking about an RB2 here, not a lot of need for coach speak around that. So it looks like his status is genuinely up in the air. In our projections, we had Cam Akers originally. He's gone now. It's just Walker, Darnold, and Rashid Shaheed with a handful. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. And what I saw going through today's stuff is, I've mostly been looking at how this impacts the run game. But from a passing game perspective, Charbonnet was significantly more involved in the pass blocking jobs. Tagged 67 pass blocking snaps to just 47 for Walker, but still allowed fewer pressures, only 5 to Walker's 8. So despite more snaps, was more efficient in at least snuffing out the pass rush that came Darnold's way. So remains to be seen how this kind of shakes out, but the offense with only a handful of playmakers might not want to have to put even more on the shoulders of one of them. So it's going to be maybe a long day for Ken Walker with a lot of work.
Yeah, I really can see this going multiple ways. I can see a Kenneth Walker masterpiece. I think he's one of the toughest running backs there is, and he's really been, I don't know, protected from overwork his entire career, given the way Seattle likes to use their backs. So it'll be so fascinating to watch that potentially change in a must-win game with a Super Bowl on the line. I would think that just a larger workload could mean really good things for Kenneth. And depending on where you get some prices with his player props, that has my attention. At the same time, God forbid, if anything happens to Kenneth Walker, even if he gets a stinger or goes to the medical tent for 5 minutes, then everything's on Sam Darnold's arm in a championship game. I mean, there's a lot of dominoes that could fall one way or the other, depending on how this happens.
Yep. And, kind of back to what you said real quick, he only has a handful of games where he's logged more than 20 carries a game, and most of them date back about 3 seasons at this point. It's really been a heavy split. He's never done that unless like he just really had that hot hand, and he's been more efficient as a yards per carry guy, so he hasn't had to log that many touches, even when he's splitting it with Zach Charbonnet. But it's going to be a lot of work for him, I think, regardless of who may or may not be backing him up.
Yep. Yeah. We'll see more on that in just a moment. Now, let's do our in-depth previews of these games. We're going to start in the AFC with the Broncos and the Patriots. We will give you some specific betting angles, talk line movement, maybe finalize a few plays here. So let's start with line movement here. How have things changed since the last time we talked on Denver, New England?
Yeah, so a little bit of movement on the spread and the total since the opening line as well. Let me pull up this game preview here for us, actually, and we'll kind of scroll through it as we get through each piece. So this was even +5 earlier this morning. Its best number, 53.8% right now on Broncos, +4.5. 50-50 on the total at 42.5, which is what we saw the other day. And Broncos money line 34.3%, very slim 1% edge at +200. Fair odds would be +190. So, not too far off there, but a very small edge to speak of. So this was 5.5 the other day. It's down to 4.5. I was just trying to get a read on what maybe we could expect as far as more movement. And it does seem like, some, I don't even know how I would put this, just sources, I guess, just chatter out there. Seems like people wouldn't be surprised if this moves to like a 3.5 point line. That would surprise me simply because of where it was. That feels like a lot of movement from what already swung so high so far from the look ahead line, but it could just be more of a course correction, and certainly money coming in on the Broncos side is going to shorten that up. And I think the attitude, despite Jarrett Stidham's presence, is that Denver can hang in this game. So we've seen that line movement before. When it was +5, the model still had the Broncos inside the +4 with the final score, which hasn't changed. So we're seeing at least a little bit of consistency in the model's faith on the Broncos. When it was 5.5 the other day, it was a higher probability than this, I believe, but it was no value there given the odds. Now you're getting a little closer to even money, so there's some actual value on the spread. But at least as far as who's going to cover, it is really a toss-up. I'm starting to get a stronger lean personally towards the Broncos, starting to fall in line with the model here. But it's just the defense is such a swing point of this game that it's really going to, it's kind of hard to predict. Denver may have to do more than usual. They may have to make more stops. They might be on the field a little bit longer if Stidham can't sustain drives. So their ability to get to Drake May, and by correlation, the Patriots offensive line keeping Drake May safe and giving him time is going to be huge. Patriots have been hammered by defensive lines in the playoffs so far. May's been sacked 10 times. He's fumbled 6 times. Denver's defense averaged nearly 4 sacks per game this year. It's a nightmare matchup. They got 3 on Josh Allen last week. And the team that allowed the fewest sacks this season, Denver, 1.3 per game. Bo Nix wasn't sacked last week. So it's just a lot to think about as far as what this game will hinge on. But it really feels like it's going to be specifically in those trenches as far as the passing game and which quarterback basically is going to get the time to throw. I feel like if you can have time to throw as Jarrett Stidham, you can probably make some plays. They're going to have all week for him to get up to speed. It's not like he's coming in the middle of a game, suddenly has to lean on, a package of plays that he's used to. And Patriots wise, Drake May had, sacked 10 times. He had the struggles. And if he's kind of on the move against a defense that, granted, gave up a lot of yards last week, a lot of points, still made problems for Josh Allen, who turned the ball over 4 times. So, it's really going to be a fun one, I think, despite what might not be the cleanest game to watch. So I definitely think, that puts the Broncos cover in play. They might be able to do just enough to get them in position. And, as mentioned, Drake May's slightly shaky play lately, and the Broncos defense, which I feel like last week was definitely more of an outlier than what we're going to see as like a paradigm shift of the Broncos defense suddenly be bad. Definitely feels like a Broncos game. But at the same time, I can see Stidham doing just enough, but not a lot. So I would like the under, I think, in this scenario, despite my gut feels not really being on point last week when the model had a 50-50 play. So I would lean Broncos in the under at this point. But, I don't know. We'll see how this number changes, maybe even further as we get closer to Sunday. Let's give it Sunday, right?
I am talking myself into a game script here, and I want to run this by you. And yes, this is influenced a little bit by both where the line is moving and also what our model has shown value on all week. It's making me stare at Broncos more and more and more. I'm holding that futures ticket. I'd love to see them get to the Super Bowl at this point to potentially be able to hedge that. At the same time, if they are actually going to win and or keep this close, I think there's a very specific way it happens. And I think it involves some Drake May turnovers. And I think it involves basically flawless, no mistake driven offensive ball from Stidham. Doesn't need to be sexy, but it needs to be game management, field position, run the ball, short, quick passes, don't flip the field. And I'm looking at this. I mean, we're talking building a parlay here. So this is not exactly going to be a high probability outcome by any means. But Drake May to throw one interception. Jarrett Stidham to not throw an interception, under half of an interception. And the under 42.5 without touching the spread is 7-1. If you wanted to add Broncos plus 4.5 to that, it gets you up to 10-1. That's kind of the game script to me, is can Drake May keep kind of being loose with the football? Do they limit Stidham's attempts? Do they just play field position and make sure that that flawless offensive line performance continues? I don't think that's that crazy. And if you wanted to pull out one single part of that I like the most here, Stidham is plus 150 to not throw an interception in this game. I don't think that's that crazy at home if they don't ask him to throw the ball downfield.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy either. I mean, you have to imagine they're probably not going to open up the entire playbook, right? That Bo Nix would be using. And I do think that's probably the game script in which the Broncos are most likely to win. Denver won all of its worst offensive games this year. Every time they scored fewer than 20 points, they won the game. They don't need to match the Patriots as far as points if the defense can just kind of keep them a little lower, 18-16, 20-16, 17-14 type of game could certainly be in play here if the Broncos defense can simply do what it needs to do, and Jarrett Stidham plays a fairly, at least mistake-free game. I can certainly see both of those bets in play. And yeah, I mean, I think if I'm playing that, I would probably just add the Broncos in because I don't see a scenario in which Stidham makes no mistakes, Drake May makes a mistake, it's the under, and the Patriots lose by more than, or the Broncos lose by more than 5 points. So,
yeah. And would I love to play that at like 20-1? Absolutely. That's where your boosts come in too, right? If you have a 10-1 ticket and maybe you can get something at any of these sports books. I think I'm going to throw that together for this game, but we'll see. You've also got your eyes on the run game here. Ramondre Stevenson has been on fire. You've been calling it out for weeks, and our model projects him to once again lead the Pats backfield.
Yeah, he's flashed in both games so far in the postseason. But even with those moments, I will say the Pats' rushing attack has been pretty inconsistent, mostly because they're split between Ramondre, Travion Henderson, and Drake May can get a little unpredictable. There are games where they pretty much split evenly, games where Drake May takes a handful of carries, games where Ramondre dominates more as a receiver. So it can be kind of hard to pin down. But I mean, he should certainly be involved pretty heavily. It makes sense that he's the most likely touchdown scorer for the Pats by more than 10%. I mean, in this whole game, he leads everybody. So projected for 53 rushing yards and 23 receiving yards, which is pretty in line with what we saw last week. 31 rushing yards for Drake May, 37 for Travion Henderson. But Broncos rushing defense, which has been excellent, was absolutely gashed last week by Buffalo. I do feel like I said that's more of an outlier, but they gave up 183 rushing yards, 5.1 yards per carry. Quarterback scrambles were a major issue for the Broncos front six. Josh Allen carried it, I think, 11 times. Maybe that was the game before, but he was very active and definitely opens the door for Drake May to make an impact with his legs. I think his line is actually higher than this, so I'd be careful about taking his over. I would see what it is. Maybe look at him for something early or not, but 25, 30 plus if you're looking for like a parlay leg, certainly in play for Drake May. On the Broncos side of things, Pat's run defense has been excellent in the playoffs, notably since they got defensive end Milton Williams back from IR in week 18, held teams to under 130 total yards so far in the postseason. That's on the ground. Herbert, the leading rusher, Justin Herbert with 57 yards on 10 carries in that first round. They've just been absolutely shut down when it comes to teams in the run game. And last week, RJ Harvey and the Broncos run game were abysmal. They could not get anything going. 10 carries for the running backs for a total of 41 yards. Jaleel McLaughlin had just 4 carries, which tied his second lowest mark in 8 straight games. So it doesn't look like, I don't know, now you're going to have to deal with him as being the RB2 in a backup quarterback run offense. So I don't really see much going for Jaleel McLaughlin this week. Question would be if Harvey can bounce back and thrive. And there's a name popping up in here, which was not earlier, which I did make myself a note here that we'll talk about. But I would just say the model's leaning no, at least as far as Harvey bouncing back. His theoretical line could not get a rushing line, probably because of what's going on with the run game here. But I would imagine his theoretical over-under would be about 45.5 based on what his odds for 40 plus and 50 plus are. I could not find an over-under, though, for him or McLaughlin. Ironically, you can find Marvin Mims with an over-under of 2.5 rushing yards, but not on a running back. And that's probably worth noting. It's because J.K. Dobbins has had his practice window open. He is cracking these projections here, 23 yards, 18% touchdown probability. That's very theoretical because he is not active yet. There's no indication on whether or not he'll play for the first time since November 6th. All that said, when what is already an ugly rushing spot on the Broncos side of things, looking more and more like a just total stay away market for me in this game.
Yeah, I can't touch the backs for Denver. I'm not a Harvey guy, never have been, which does work against my entire pitch on how they can hang in this game. However, J.K. Dobbins return maybe, like if you're telling me there's a chance, if you'll give me a 5% chance J.K. Dobbins plays, I can talk myself into that 5% being amazing. I am a Dobbins guy. I thought he was really dynamic pre-injury this year. And we'll see. We'll see exactly what happens in this game. But I find it pretty ominous that there's no discussion of him yet. He's listed in a couple different spots. So keep an eye on it, folks. That's the beauty of the Dimers Pro model, by the way. You can check all this stuff in real time. You can see what our model is thinking. You can figure out as guys are in or out of the lineups with injury, how it affects projected yards, touchdowns, all of that. So promo code podcast, make sure you get 50% off of Dimers Pro. Let's talk touchdown value here. There was some touchdown value on Cortland Sutton earlier this week, but it looks like things are moving.
Yeah, it was gone today. I don't think it's here right now. Not a crazy, movement or anything. His probability dipped about 1.5%. His odds were down to 270, but he's fair down to plus 260. So, anything up to there you would be playable at and still a value, but it comes underneath our edge threshold. Today you have Marvin Mims here, 22.2%. 3.7% edge at plus 440. He'd be fair at plus 350, so a really solid edge. Having a bit of a down year compared to last season, where he was actually kind of breaking out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had 8 touchdowns, 500 something yards, but he's down to only 300 something, 2 touchdowns all year, including in the postseason. But he did just have his best game, 8 targets, caught them all, 93 yards and a touchdown. Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, both questionable, could end up seeing a bigger role. I'm just speculating that he's probably had more reps with Jarrett Stidham than some of the other guys, given that he was at best wide receiver 4, 5 in the offense before. So possibly, something there, but no touchdown value on the Patriots side. If you go look at the probabilities, like I said, Ramondre is the favorite at 45%. is close to fair odds at plus 110. I think that would be about plus 120, plus 125. So at least you're on the right side of plus money, as sometimes we don't see with the lead back. Personally, kind of like Hunter Henry. He's our most likely pass catcher on the Patriots to score, 31% here. Scored a TD in, I think it was the first playoff game I think he did. But Dalton Kincaid tore up the Broncos last week, was their leading pass catcher, scored a touchdown. Tight ends were actually a rare blemish for the Broncos defense in the regular season, almost 70 yards per game allowed since week 10. He'd be fair at plus 220. I saw him plus 195 at his best, so not quite what you want for value, but there's a good chance I have Hunter Henry to score and something on my personal cards.
Yeah. I feel like Henry is a good play this week. I'm not surprised he's the most likely pass catcher according to the model whatsoever. I like the Mim shout too. Sometimes chemistry is an underrated thing when you're breaking in a new quarterback. Just any sort of rapport that you've got from practice squad days or just familiarity, quite frankly. You lean to the things that you recognize when you're in a spot that you can't recognize. And that should be what's happening with Stidham here. So, all right, there you have it. Anything else on Pat's Broncos before we move to game 2?
That's it for me. Let's get out of here.
Let's do it. All right, Seahawks and Rams are next. And I have a feeling we're going to have a hard time finding an edge in this game with where the lines remain.
Yeah, basically have not moved at all from the other day. I think it's 1 point on the total maybe, but other than that, that's it. And no offense to the Broncos, Patriots, and their respective fans, but I am much more looking forward to this game, even though there may not be very much of an edge in game lines. But it's the battle in Seattle, if you will, the title game for the best in the West. Seahawks, Rams 3. Winner of this game will almost certainly be favored in the Super Bowl, especially if the Broncos pull out that win. So last chance to get some plus money on either of them to hoist the Lombardi if you are thinking that's the case. Otherwise, like we said, get the Pats. But not very much movement here. As I mentioned, it's been plus 2.5 since. Totals dropped a point from 47.5. However, that looks to only be on DraftKings. The last I looked, you can still get it 47.5 pretty much everywhere. So if you are looking for the over, make sure you get it there. Get the best number that corresponds to your side of the bet. Fair odds for the Rams would be plus 135 on the money line. They are plus 125, so not really too bad. Minus 135 would be fair for Seattle. So you're actually getting pretty close to the number on both sides, which is not too bad. But no value according to the Dimers model. Anyway, but split the season series between these two. Week 16 game, arguably the best game of the season, came right down to the wire, just like the earlier one, though it was a lot more interesting in the second game. The bizarre 2-point conversion required pretty much for Seattle to win that game. So otherwise it would be Rams 2-0 here. Haven't been underdogs. That's Los Angeles since the last matchup with Seattle, which was only the second time they were all year. So this is pretty rare territory for them. One of the better teams against the spread overall this season, 12-7 in the regular season. So they did not cover versus the Bears or Carolina in the postseason. Both of those, obviously, they were favored though. Excellent defenses by both these sides all year. Seattle led the league overall DVOA. Stafford was one of the few players who actually found success against their passing defense. Did so with to the tune of 400-something yards in Week 16. And I don't think we need to overly dissect the differences between Sam Darnold and Matt Stafford, who, as you always say, Greg, you think about the QB matchup at the heart of things, but in the head-to-head between the two this season, it's pretty staggering. Darnold has 14 picks this year. 6 of them were against the Rams. Matt Stafford tossed 5 touchdowns without a turnover playing the Seahawks. So comfort-wise against the opponent, while the Seahawks may have come away with that victory in a huge high-scoring battle that the Rams did not have Devontae Adams in, the quarterback play could not be further apart in this matchup. So
I love that stat. It's also scary as someone who is going to back the Rams. Spoiler alert for 20 minutes from now. But I just like it. I think Stafford has dominated the thing I care most about in a high leverage game. Whose quarterback is going to rise to the occasion? Who isn't? I still don't trust Darnold. He's been fine in this playoff run, but I've seen enough in big games from him that at some point he's just liable to have a 4-interception game. The scary part of this is he's already done that against the Rams, and they've essentially played even in spite of it. So if there was ever a team that could survive that type of performance, it clearly is Seattle. That's the most ominous part of this to me. But I do think you're right. It bodes well just in terms of, this is who I'm up against. Sam Darnold's going to be shaky a little bit, I think, in terms of nerves. Matt Stafford, I don't think, could be more excited for this opportunity.
Yeah. The QB, it's going to be the Rams defense, really. I think that's going to be what decides this, because the end of game issues continue to plague them on that side of the ball. It's not really the offense that's had trouble scoring. Once, maybe they've had a couple droughts, but they ultimately do pretty well. They do put the games away for the most part. But, we saw it with the Bears. They got away with it at the end, despite playing a much better game defensively down the stretch than they had versus Carolina and in the end of the regular season. So if the defense plays really well, it's kind of hard, or doesn't at least let Seattle hang in there. It's a little hard to envision Sam Darnold outplaying Matt Stafford and that being what decides the game. My personal leans would be Rams 2.5 and the over, given that I do think we're going to see something closer offensively to that last game. But 50-50 from the model on both. So if you're looking for value, this is not where you would find it.
Yeah, this is going to be a play your gut game and know that you're paying a little bit of a tax, I feel like, on either way. Shout out to the odds makers who got this one dead right. No opportunity for value. Let's look at the run game next. We know that Kyron Williams will be heavily involved, and we know that Kenneth Walker will be heavily involved. But Corum's been a guy that we've looked to at times this year in terms of both projections that might surprise you and also touchdown value. Is there anything this week?
Yeah, not really, let me check his props in a second, because we did have a little value on his over the other day, but nothing touchdown wise for either of them, which we have seen in the playoffs. It's just there's almost no touchdown value in both of these games in the conference championships. But the first 2 rounds, we saw plenty of touchdown edges. So a little bit of a different story here. Kyron Williams projecting for 61 yards, 44% TD probability. He hit 70 and 91 versus the Seahawks this year. Was very good last week. So I certainly think that's in play for him. I think you can get just about even money for him at 60. Actually, I have in my notes that I had plus money, but it looked a little different when I was going through some SGP work earlier. But almost even money on Blake Corum to get 30 plus, projecting for 34. Let me check in the props real quick. We saw him the other day. Here he is for receiving for 1 reception. I don't see him for the over rushing yards anymore. Might be getting a lower line because he was basically non-existent last week after being pretty heavily featured down the stretch. So I didn't really know what to make of that. If it was just because Kyron was rushing well and had the hot hand, or if there was more to it than that. But probably not touching Corum personally. I do like Kyron on the ground. We have him, pretty close to his line, but he's looked really good and found success against Seattle twice so far this season. On the Seahawks side of things, obviously we talked about this with Kenneth Walker, still the only active RB on the roster. Might see George Jelani in here come Sunday. If he is active, I imagine he's going to slot in above Shaheed and Darnold, but probably not for very many yards, maybe a handful. But Kenneth Walker right now, 89 rushing yards, 25 receiving yards. And I do like that second angle because he caught 2 for 27 and 3 for 64 in both games versus LA this season. Kyle Monangai caught 4 for 36 last week. They may try and go after that early, especially with him being the featured back and not having to worry about splitting with Charbonnet. And if there is a backup, I kind of doubt that they would feature him in the same type of Charbonnet role early in a game. Probably save him for third downs, maybe pass blocking situations, given that Kenneth Walker wasn't as good as Charbonnet in those. But I'll probably try and go after that early with Kenneth Walker. He's a plus 127 for 5 receiving yards in the first quarter. So, and we've seen him recently be used that way in the first, go right after teams. So, especially in that 49ers game at the end of the regular season, I had like 25 in the first quarter. So Yeah, that's the run game right there. I do have one more thing here. I forgot about this. I had it in a separate page of my notes, but I would love to find a rushing line on Rashid Shaheed. You can't really find anything yards wise, um, uh, at least as far as a ladder or anything. But I was just looking at his stats because we had value on him for over zero point 0.5 rushing yards. 7 games with New Orleans, he had one carry. He had one game with a carry with New Orleans. 7 games, including last week, he has had a carry with Seattle. So entirely different role featured in terms of being utilized as a runner. Only had 1 or 2 carries in the games where he actually got one, but he does have 2 rushes of 30 plus yards this season. The model does find an edge in his over 0.5 over 0.5 rushing yards, which is the lowest you can obviously find the line, but notably it is 2.5 where I've seen it. So over 0.5 rushing yards, 73.8%, minus 145. So a little juicy, but a 14.6% edge there, projected for 8.4. So if you could find 5 plus or 10 plus, it's probably a fun play to make. He could break it in one big play. He's done it a few times this year. He's over the 0.5 line in 7 of 8 games where he actually has a carry. So, if he's getting the carry, he's going to get that. So it's minus 145. He had 2 carries, I believe, last week. I should have put that down, but simply something I would like to have found available is like a 5, 10, 15 rushing yards ladder for Shaheed.
Yeah, I see the vision with Shaheed for sure. I mean, the Mr. Explosive play. It feels like every single game since he's joined Seattle, he's breaking the game open somehow, one way or another. So I like the shout there. That would be a fun way to go about this. Shaheed kind of blurs the lines between they're going to use him in the run game, the special teams game, or the receiving game. But let's look at some other receiving options here. You are looking to the stars, Smith-Njigba and Puka Nacua. That's top of the card for you?
Yeah, it cashed in the Week 16 game. I'm going to go after it again. 90 plus yards each and a touchdown. We've got it projected with the yards, 95 for Nacua, 93 for Jackson Smith-Njigba, 43% touchdown for JSN, 41% for Puka. This is a huge game, the biggest game for these teams at this point in the season. They're going to look for their big players who have made big plays all season. They're the offensive player of the year favorites. I just don't see how they're not heavily featured. Plus 750 for that little 4-legger. One I'm happy to ride into the sunset with if that's the hill I'm gonna lose on for the week. But I just don't see how they're not, and they're their top projected guys, so I'm happy to ride with them. And we've often seen a slightly bigger discrepancy between Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua for the top touchdown probability, and it's a little bit closer than usual in this one. So, granted, there was no Devontae Adams in that shootout game. Projected for 54 yards and a 43% TD probability here. Wouldn't be surprised to see them both very active, but I mean, it's Puka. He's going to do Puka things, I think. Came up just shy of the 90 in their first meeting, and JSN went over, I think he hit 100 in that game. So positive trends in the 2 games in the previous meetings for these guys. So that's what I'm definitely looking at. I think I even talked about that on Tuesday. I've had my eye on that since this matchup was circled. Tertiary pass catchers for the Rams gets a little dicey. They're all pretty close projection wise. I will say Higbee has been very clutch since returning. Long catches of 21, 27, and 36 in his 3 games. He is plus 170 for his longest reception to be 15 plus yards, which is something that I've worked into my little play of the week, but he's been really, really consistent with getting a chunk play in his usage this season. He was banged up, missed a bunch of games, but even earlier in the year, he was regularly tallying a play of 15, 20 yards or so. So certainly an angle to look at. On the wide receiver side for the Seahawks behind JSN, it's gets a little murky, clouds things even further because Cooper Kupp, who's been, very sparingly used, I guess, had one of his best games of the season last week in a game that Darnold barely had to pass and do anything. So not really sure what we're going to get in this regard. Pretty minimally involved by him against the Rams in both games. Caught 6 of 11 targets for 62 yards and no score. it's difficult to get a grasp on who's next up in this. I guess by, if you're just going by who's done what, it's this season, it's Cooper Kupp at 1,200 yards behind Jackson Smith and Jigba as the second highest receiver in this offense. So, it seems unlikely that Kupp would have 3 more or less duds against his former team in one season, especially 2 at home, but just not a lot to go on positively from the pass catchers, except the aforementioned Rashid Shaheed, who I will shout this out thanks to the projections and another edge, but we have him projected for 31 receiving yards and 2.2 receptions. His line is 1.5 receptions. He caught 5 for 68 versus the Rams as a Saint, then 2 for 27 in his first meeting as a member of Seattle, and then only 1 target in the Week 16 matchup. So he's actually his 4th game against the Rams this year coming up. But yeah, we project his over, which is, I think, 25.5. It was, and he has 2 games with Seattle where he recorded yard totals of 67 and 74 yards. We know he's an absolute burner and makes big plays. I think 50, 60, 70 might be worth a little sprinkle at plus 322, plus 514, and plus 810 for those intervals. I'm definitely putting a unit on 30 plus for him since we have that in his projections. And I think I will dabble on those other ladders because that's basically one big play for him. And I mean, just based on what we've seen from the other receivers, it's wide open for who can take the second spot in that offense.
I was going to say you're always one snap away, basically, and it's worth a shot. I love that vision. I'm in. I feel like Shaheed has the most upside as far as individual options go past the big favorites here. For touchdowns, there's a name that we talked about mid-season getting a big opportunity, and he's hung around all week as our value touchdown play here. Kanata Mumfield. This is one that will be on my card. I got to be honest with you. 25-1. You've got a 2.7% edge. We've got just over a 6% probability he finds the end zone. That's obviously not the likeliest outcome. Of course, we don't even know how much he'll be on the field. But I will tell you this, McVay's offense, when they get in the red zone, they give the quote-unquote random guys shots. They have a lot of scripted plays that maybe it's almost like specialists come in and we're trying to get this guy open, and it's one look for Stafford. And I just wouldn't be surprised if one of those options is Mumfield and he's the forgotten guy while everybody's staring at Puka defensively.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at all. You're seeing the Fergusons, the Parkinsons, the Xavier Smiths get in the end zone when they're down there. I mean, yeah, I feel like you could not have to play it, but a nice little 0.1 unit or so. I mean, 25-1 for an anytime touchdown is ridiculous. Obviously he's very sparingly used. He's got 1 touchdown this year. His best game came without Devontae Adams. It was versus the Seahawks in Week 16, but he's pretty sparingly used. So it's the definition of a long shot, both in odds and reality. However, sometimes you take a shot on those plays, and the only way to win long term with straights is by taking valuable, smart wagered plays. So maybe a very small unit on here would do a lot of weight heavy lifting for the whole weekend. So anytime TD wise, nothing really changed here since the other day though. Walker's the only one over 50%, but as we mentioned on Tuesday, well below his implied probability, though he has dropped from -175 to -155, but still well over what we would put him at, which should be practically +100. And he is the only guy, though, I think, at minus odds in this game. So even if the value isn't there, you're not getting heavily taxed on the favorites for the Rams or JSN as the second favorite for the Seahawks.
Yeah. Appropriately priced game all around is what it seems like. There's just hard to find too many edges, even touchdown props this week outside of the Mumfield play and your proposed Shaheed ladder, which I really like. I feel like this is going to be a high on the entertainment scale game for me, maybe a low on the bet volume game for me, but I will be playing Rams outright. I don't know if I said that already. This was the pre-playoff Super Bowl pick for both of us. We're catching them at plus money. We've laid out all the reasons why I doubt Sam Darnold. We are one Kenneth Walker hit to the head. I don't want that to happen, but we're one tunnel trip away, Dave, from this entire game relying on Sam Darnold out-dueling Matt Stafford. To me, that alone is worth a little edge at plus 130 on the money line.
I'm going to have to get out there and play running back if Ken Walker gets injured. And my anytime TD odds do not have an edge. So for the Seahawks' sake and the bettors, they need Ken Walker.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's as in-depth as we can go on both of the championship games. We will be looking forward to recapping these next week. And of course, we'll have a bunch of Super Bowl prep content over the next couple of weeks for you as well. For now, let's each give out one personal play. And we're both sticking in the championship games here, football-wise. What's your personal play this week?
Yeah, so I'm going to lean on something using the Dimers projections and some trends here to try and hit a parlay in a market that I have dabbled in the last 2 weeks, coming up one leg short both times, disappointingly. Both times, the Patriots as well, frustratingly. Demario Douglas not catching a 15-yard pass in the wild card round, then getting like a 38-yard touchdown the following week. And Hunter Henry getting like one pass for 5 yards last week after doing quite well the week before and being heavily featured. I move on to this week where I'm going to use longest receptions as a way to put the projections to work. I figure if these guys are projected to get yards, there's a solid chance they'll get at least one chunk play and thus help me hit this. So I'm going to do a little bit of a ladder here, a plus 1335 longest receptions ladder. One player each to slowly get a higher increment. And that's going to be Ramondre for 10 plus yards. We project him for 22.9. He's got that in 6 of 7 since December. Went under last week as the first game. He hasn't in almost 2 months. Higbee, 15 plus yards, 19.6 yards projected. He's hit this in 3 straight since his return. Like I mentioned earlier, regularly hitting a chunk play of 15, 20 or more. Plus 170 on that. That's my favorite straight of these. Probably will do that. I might even, I don't know, Don't let me get out of control here. Kayshon Boutte, 20 plus yards. We project him for 43.4. He's got a 30 plus yard reception in both playoff games so far, both against very good defenses. And Puka Nacua, longest reception of 25 plus yards, projecting him for 95. He did this 8 times this year. He hasn't done it since he last played Seattle. Give me the best player out there to do big things. Plus 1335 on DraftKings.
Big players make big plays in big games and cash big bets. I like adding Puka there as well. This is a creative way to go about this, Dave. I appreciate that from you. I like it, and I see the vision. I'm going to get a little cute as well, and I guess this is maybe, I don't know, this is just a gut feel single special market that's out there right now. It's plus 340 at DraftKings Sportsbook for all teams in the conference championship games to score 1 or more rushing touchdowns. Now, look, I haven't had much luck when I try to do the every game something happens plays lately. I've been playing a lot of these in the playoffs. However, I think they're just fun bets, and you shouldn't place bets because they're fun, but there's a lot of different ways for this to end up possibly going green. You look at the Dimers projections, all 3 of the most likely touchdown scorers are running backs this week. Kenneth Walker, 51%, Ramondre Stevenson, 45%, Kyron Williams, 44%. Conveniently, those guys are all on 3 different teams. RJ Harvey is our 6th highest projected scorer here. 5 of our top 8 projected scorers are backs when you add Travion Henderson into this as well. I think you've got situations, and we talked about this in our in-depth previews, situations where there aren't exactly great receiving options everywhere outside of the Rams that are, they like to go to Adams and Puka in the red zone. I mean, Seattle, as banged up as they are, the running back room, if Jackson Smith-Njigba's seeing double coverage, I don't know that they want to throw the ball to score the end zone in this game. I don't think Jarrett Stidham wants to throw the ball if Denver's in the red zone in this game. And I think Drake May, with how much pressure that Denver front 7 can bring, regardless of if they call some pass plays, he's been liable to use his legs and scramble and get in the end zone himself. So I just think this is a likely outcome. I really do. I think it's a fun way to sit back and watch these games unfold. And if I can cash a 3.5 to 1 ticket for each team to find the end zone once on the ground, I'll be real happy this weekend.
Yeah, I love it. Like you said, they're all at the top of the board. And yeah, there's a good chance that the Broncos, should they get in the red zone, will take it a little light with their quarterback.
Yep. All right. There we have it. That is everything as far as championship week NFL preview goes for us. Let's turn next to one college hoops play of the night.
College Corner.
I typically like to do 3-play cards for these college corners, but as college basketball fans know, during the week, it's very spotty how many games are going on. It's just a pretty light slate on Thursday. I will say, this is the value of Dimers Pro. It may not be the biggest names, biggest brands in action. It's a lot of mid-major games tonight, but there are a ton of value plays, high edge plays, sweet spot plays on the site tonight. So we just pulled out one that's the only one that's on my personal card that maps with the Dimers model. But for college hoops bettors out there, there's 13 to 14 different best bets that qualify for our thresholds tonight. So go check them out. Use promo code podcast, get 50% off with Dimers Pro. The one that is on my card, and it's my only play tonight, is Penn State plus 5.5 against the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin is a difficult team to handicap this year because they're very volatile depending on their three-point shooting, and they shoot a ton of threes, 12th most in the country. They make 35% of them, but any given night, they can make 50% of their threes. They win those games. And any given night, they can go cold. They pretty much across the board automatically lose those games. Our model shows some value both on Penn State money line, which we give a 1 in 3 chance of cashing. That shows a 2% edge at just over 2-to-1 odds. And then Penn State plus 5.5, 55% probability, a little bit higher edge if you play the spread in this game. I see the vision for this one. It's a sell high spot on Wisconsin after they've won 4 consecutive games. They got everybody's attention beating Michigan on the road a couple weeks ago. But the rest of this has largely been schedule dependent. You know, a 9-point win where you give up 87 points to Rutgers at home is not exactly the most inspiring result. Now you go on the road to what I think is one of the tougher venues in all of the Big Ten Conference to play in Happy Valley and Penn State. College basketball players are used to playing games in front of a crowd. You don't get that in Happy Valley. There's depth perception issues to teams that like to shoot the basketball. And it sounds silly almost, but it's almost the biggest home court advantage that Penn State could have, not having a packed arena for these games. It's this ominous, eerie type environment. And we've seen so many teams struggle with it. You look through Penn State's schedule this year, Michigan almost got beat outright as a 19-point favorite. It came down to the final possession in Happy Valley. And they even fared well against Michigan State, losing by just 4 points and covering the spread by almost, I think, a touchdown in that game. So I just like Penn State. I think this is a valuable number for a team that is a really tough out against the best teams in this conference at home. They're still seeking their first win outright in Big Ten play, but we just saw another winless team in Northwestern last night pick up their first. Penn State's good enough to win this game. Ominous shooting environment for a team dependent on 3-point shots. Give me the Nittany Lions. I'm personally playing plus 5.5. I will not be playing the money line on my personal card, but I wouldn't blame you if you do. And I've got some smart friends in the industry that are playing Penn State outright that trust what the Dimers model shows here. So there you have it, Dave.
Nice. Thank you for the insight, Greg. Anything prop-wise ever stand out to you in this? Or doesn't even look like there's anything on Penn State, but you did mention they make a lot of threes, right? You said Wisconsin?
Yeah, they love to shoot the three. That's pretty much what their entire offense is built on. Nolan Winter does show an enormous edge to make 2 threes in this game at plus 130. And Winter is really their third option. He usually gets a lot of 3-point volume up. It won't be a surprise if he steps out against the 7-foot front line of Penn State and gets those up. So I would back that. That's a ridiculous edge to see on site, a 13% edge. It's very rare we see something like that in any sport. I would definitely back Nolan Winter to make 2 threes tonight.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's close the show next. But first, we've got another champ of the week.
The pro champ of the week.
By one champ of the week, I mean multiple champs of the week. Dave, take us through them.
Yeah, not one, not two, 3 champs of the week. First of which, who I can only refer to as pumpkin and don't sign emoji, because that's what their username is in the Discord. Took advantage of the hot tennis model, cashed in the tennis bets on site. This might be a little small for you to see if you're watching the video, but we had a plus 850 upset in there. They slapped a nice little bonus bet on there to cash in. Another user, Gaza Nation, dropped nearly 20-1 Champions League parlay in our soccer channel yesterday for the streets. The streets cashed in. It was great. And then this guy was just on here maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. We got to call him out again. 3 jacks and a pair of nines, shared and cashed a plus 14,178 NBA parlay using the Dimers projections hub on Tuesday night. Shared it in the basketball channel. Had a few people tailing that one. Was still going on when I went to sleep. Pretty fun to wake up in the morning and see the Discord chat jumping over winning that. So it was pretty cool. Community is going off lately. We really love to see it. It's what that Discord's all about. It's just people sharing, giving advice, helping each other out. And we love to see it and shout out their success.
Yeah, I've been getting the Discord notifications, I feel like, a ton this week that we've got crazy ticket winners. You love to see it. And I want to shout out the tennis model as well. I've been playing a lot of just the straight bets that a lot of like first set value. We show an edge on a certain big favorite who's likely to win all 3 sets at a favorable number just to win the first. And it really has been humming. There's been a crazy hit rate in the Australian Open this week. So shout out to the model. Thank you, Dimers. What else is on Dimers this week, Dave?
All right. More AFC, NFC Championship content coming your way. I'd say expect at least one same game parlay, possibly one for each game for the conference championships, as well as some other angles that we'll find in the Dimers model between now and kickoff. Look out for those on the homepage and articles on our socials. And, of course, in the Discord where we're always active. May not have a TD play this week with so few edges. I would like to do something. Maybe it'll just be personal stuff for me and my own leans in the Discord. But keep your eyes out on the site and in there. With the American Express, we got that updating after each round, barring any delays or suspensions. Betting it live might be the only way to do this one if Scotty Scheffler stays hot. He was -6 through 7 or 8 holes, I think, right before I started this show. And I said he's generally gotten off to not the hottest starts in the year, but that may be maybe changing. And if he is going to do this early, I think the only way to play golf from here on out is probably win or without, or I'm just going to bet my winners to finish top 5. But if he does me dirty this early on, I won't be fading him very much. As mentioned, tennis is going on. Australian Open is rolling. Mentioned one of our top edges was a plus 850 upset. Just talked about that. Maybe you saw it in the socials earlier, but hop on the site, filter by edge or probability, whatever you like. Bet those straights. Can't recommend it enough. And I should have led off the show with this. I hope I don't get yelled at by the bosses, but the Dimers app, it exists now. It is a real thing. We've launched this. It has been asked for and requested for years at this point. We have officially launched the Dimers app. It's our latest addition to the Dimers Pro Suite, designed to enhance, simplify your experience on the Dimers platform. All the bets and props from the site are on there now. We're looking to bring more content and more updates to it. It's got a couple features as far as like odds comparisons that we don't have on site. If you click in a bet, it will show you exactly what that edge is for that bet at every odds on the different books. So you don't have to do any math if you can't get the same odds that our model is displaying with the value. So it's really great. Download it. It only works if you got Dimers Pro. It is an enhancement of Dimers Pro, not a way around it. So yes, please download the Dimers app. It's really exciting here. Give us your feedback and put it to use. We're excited about it.
It looks amazing. Congratulations to the whole team on this. I know this was a talk.
They did great.
Even years ago, back when I was working day to day at Dimers, and it is everything I think everyone has asked for years and more. So kudos to the entire Dimers group. Great work on that. Go get the app. Get Dimers Pro. Promo code podcast 50% off. Okay, 3 football games left, 2 this weekend. Hopefully we gave you some guidance on just how to bet these games. We'll have plenty more content in store for you on the Dimer Sports Betting Podcast between now and the Super Bowl. For now, good luck. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to our entire listening audience. Gamble responsibly as always, and we'll see you again next week. Listen up.